Yo, YouTube! Welcome to my video for Monday the 14th of October. Quite a lot has happened since I was last in contact with you, and I'll try and remember most of it. But first of all, what's happened today? And I'm going to preface these stats from saying I am quite disappointed with today, and then you'll hopefully see why. So I'm basing my mileage on 13.13 pence a mile. Excuse me. Today I've driven 295 miles, 295. I've worked for in inverted commas 11 hours and 3/4. I've managed to scrape together from 3 CX jobs £180, 180. I have spent just shy of £39 on fuel, which means that after taking into account my fuel costs, I've earned today £141, and I'm giving up for today and going home early. But before I talk about today, let me go back to my last video. At the end of that video, which was a Monday, I said I'll see you all next on Wednesday. And I had every intention of doing a video after work on Wednesday. And I had a really exciting day planned. So let's go back in time to, I think it was the 2nd of October. Let me just double check this. That's my memory, so 2nd October. Yeah, Wednesday, the 2nd of October. So nearly 2 weeks ago now. And I started work. I had a job in the morning. It was a really good job. It was taking me up towards Manchester. No, it was taking me to Derby. But it got me from my home most of the way to Manchester, because on that day, I was planning to go to see my daughter in Manchester and watch a football game. I won't say which team. My home team, not my home team, the team that I supported as a kid, and they were playing. Actually, I must tell you because you'll work it out. I was going to watch the Villa Bayern Munich game because it's the first European Championship game back for a long time for my team. I say my team with a bit of a heavy heart, but I'm not going to get that now. So it was going to be really nice, and I was going to see my daughter and then watch the football with her boyfriend, and we were going to have a nice time. I even, on the way up from Derby to Manchester, I even booked a job for the following morning from Stockport going to Lincoln. It was an amazingly good job, and it got me back in time for the Thursday for my dialysis on Thursday. So my day was going really well. So picture me in my van driving from Derby up towards Manchester, nothing on board, a job booked for the following morning, and I'm about to finish for the day, get up to Manchester. I was about an hour and a half away from Manchester. And I hadn't even accepted the job for Monday. It was still sitting there to be accepted. And then suddenly, the following 2 things happened in quick succession. I had a orange light come up on my van and it says service required. Then immediately that went off, and another message which said engine temperature high, stop immediately. and that was joined up with a red engine light and another red light. Now, my natural instinct when it comes to my van is just ignore those lights. They don't tend to make much difference, and if it gets really bad, I'll stop. But on this occasion, within about 10 seconds, I thought I'd better not ignore this one. I don't usually get red lights on my van, and I really am too far away from home or Manchester for me to ruin the engine. Also, obviously, I don't want to ruin the engine because I'll have no van then and I can't earn a living. So I pulled over on the slip road of the A road I was on, which was very lucky because I was very close to it anyway. And I pulled up onto the left hand side. Behind me there was a few cones, so I felt safe to get out of my van. And this was the start of our horrible couple of hours, really. So I don't know how much to tell you, but I'm going to go into probably more detail than you require, because it had quite a big effect on me. So what went through my mind was, right, okay, I know I've broken down, I know it's saying engine overhot, right, let me check the oil and the water coolant. I can do those two things. Oh yeah, the other thing, just notice, as I was pulling over like 10 seconds after the thing, and I turned the engine off, I looked at my heat gauge, which is usually halfway, and it was right at the bottom, and I wasn't sure if that was because I turned the engine off or because it was broken, maybe. But it felt like it shouldn't have been that right at the bottom of the scale. So I went and looked at the oil was between the halfway and the maximum. The engine coolant was right near the maximum. So in my head, I thought I want to do something positive. What I'll do is I'll put the water, the engine coolant up to the maximum. It made no difference whatsoever, but at least I was doing something positive. I then texted my garage mechanic and asked if he knew what I should do, and he said let it cool down and see if it restarts. And so I let it cool down, and in the meantime I was thinking, well, can I... Oh yeah, so in the meantime, the first thing I did after texting the mechanic and him sort of saying there's nothing else I think you can do, just let it cool down and then see what happens, I then called my breakdown cover, I won't say who it's with, my breakdown cover, and asked to be recovered. No, maybe that wasn't the first thing I did. Actually, I think the first thing I did actually might have been, I might have got this in the wrong order, but I'm pretty sure the very first thing I did was I looked on Google at the nearest garages to where I was, like garages, and I rang the three most local garages, because it was about half past 3 at this point, maybe 20 to 4 by the time I did the phone calls. And I thought, it's a long shot, but if I can just get myself to a garage, maybe they can say, oh, it's obviously that, we can sort that out for you. So obviously my mechanic was not available, so I thought I'd try that. I rang 3 garages. 2 garages said they were too busy and couldn't see me, which was obviously the case. I was sure it'd be the case anyway. A 3rd garage said they were too busy, but they thought that they could, he did ask his sort of boss if he could come in. They just said it was too busy. And in the end, so I tried that option first of all. Then I went to ring my recovery people, and I rang them and I gave them my number, and the first thing they said was, you're not covered because you've got a personal policy and you're in a van. And I said to them, well, I'm not actually doing a job. I'm on the way to see my daughter in Manchester, which was actually the truth. And they said, doesn't matter, you're not covered. Obviously, the tone wasn't that rude. The tone was perfectly pleasant, but I was just so upset with it. And I just didn't understand they sold me this policy. I paid through it through my business. It was for my van. I've got no other vehicles. Why was I given a policy that wasn't fit for purpose? Now I think I now know the reason for that. And I think the reason for that was, going back 2 years, I'm pretty sure I got a flyer through the post and applied online, and there was no person that was in the system that intervened to ask me the question, is this for business use? So I did the cover that I was sort of given a deal for, which was really cheap. It's about £60, and that's for a year. And I realised after the first year it'd go up, but I must have done it all online. So despite me doing it through the business, in the business van, without me knowing, to be fair, I didn't even know there was a difference. I didn't even know you could get a business policy recovery and a personal recovery policy. That's something I learned when I did this conversation. So I had a policy that I've been paying for the last 2 years, and in hindsight it was pointless because I never could have claimed. So he put me through to the business team, and just to give you a context, my policy lapses in November. I paid £160 last year for the policy, and so I haven't used it obviously for the last 2 years. I was put into business policy, and he said we can provide you with a membership for £165 for business use. And I thought, well, that's not very fair, because I've already paid that this year for what I thought I had. But anyway, I'll pay that. And then I said, okay, fair enough. I'm currently broken down, and I want to get myself home. And he said that we won't cover you recovery to home. We'll recover you to a garage within 5 miles. And that's pointless to me. I don't live near wherever I was. I was near Uttoxeter. That was it. I was on the A road, just east of Uttoxeter. So going to a garage, taking my van to a garage on a Wednesday night, no garage is going to be able to do anything with it that night. I'd be stuck in Uttoxeter or thereabouts. So that was no good for me. I had to be taken home, because then I could take it to my garage when they're available. And I worked out, so that was not what I wanted. So I said to them, how much would it cost me to get recovered back home then with this policy? And he worked it out, and it came out to £212 in addition to the £165. So that's £337 that I was going to be charged to get my van home. And I'd already paid £160, and I was really not happy about that. And I was getting quite upset about this. But so I said, I'll think about it. Well, I think I may have just said, oh, I can't afford that. I'll have to look around. So I went to my next strategy. My next strategy was to ring a towing recovery people directly from close to where I was. And I got through to somebody. I said, are you available to take me back to where I live? And they were only 5 miles down the road, about, I would say, 15 minutes away from where they started leaving. And we went through the whole thing. He kind of, asked me a few questions. He told me that he could do it. He'd be with me in about an hour. And I said, yeah, it took me ages to explain to him where I actually was. But eventually he found out where I was. And then by the time I'd done that, he said, oh, we'll come and get you then. I said, okay, but how much is it going to cost? And then he kind of paused. He hadn't thought about this at all. And then he said, all right, okay, it's going to be around about £420 plus VAT, based on 6 hours. Now, the journey from me to home was 2 hours. So give it like an hour to him to get to me, hook me up, 2 hours to get to my home, 2 hours back to his place. There's no way it's going to take any more than 5 hours anyway. And that's close to £500 there, including the VAT. I just thought that's just a rip-off. I'm not doing that. So I thought I'll ring someone else. So I rang a recovery guy, another recovery person nearby. They said they couldn't see me. but they did suggest someone that was about an hour away from me. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to do this. This is not getting me anywhere. And it was unlikely to be much cheaper than the price that RSC pay were going to charge. So I went to my third option. My third option was to ring some more recovery companies to see what they would charge me to join up and to take me home. And the first one I rang was Green Flag, and they said go to we can't do it, but there's a recovery agency an hour from you. So that's where that came from. Second one was AA. They were going to charge me about the same as I'll tell you, it was RAC. And AA was about RAC. And then when they said same conditions, take me to a local garage for £165 membership. I said, well, how much would it cost me to take me home? They said, well, the first 15 miles is free. And after that, it's £4.50 an mile. I said, okay, well, how much would that be then to get me home? And he worked it out. He said it'd be £725. And when I heard that, my response was exactly this. I laughed and I said, fuck, and then I hung up. And in real life, I said the whole thing. So I was now quite stuck and getting quite emotional. I was very frustrated. The emotion I was feeling was frustration, immense frustration, because I was letting my daughter down. Oh yes, sorry. Okay. I forgot. The very first thing I did before I did any of this was I had to ring the shipper that I got the job for in the morning and say, unfortunately, I couldn't do the job for you because I've broken down. And they were really good about it, and they understood, and luckily I gave them plenty of notice. It was still just about 20 to 4, as I said. So they had plenty of time to get it covered. For the morning, this was for the morning pickup. So I had to let that job go, which was really disappointing. So now, scroll forward to me having tried my 3 different strategies. I had nothing else to do but go back to the RAC person. So, and then by now it was about 5 to 5, I think, after I'd done all this stuff. So I rang the RAC people, they put me through to business, and it rang and rang and rang, and then... Oh no, sorry, I missed out something. Oh yeah. So, I like to be open and honest. I just how I do these videos. So, here's the bit of added value for those of you who like to look down upon me. So, when I rang back RSC the second time, after I'd done all these things, I was getting really frustrated and really quite emotional. And I went through to the initial person and I said, I've got a policy with you, but I can't use it. I don't really know why, but please keep it through to business. And while I was doing it, I was just so frustrated, so angry about it, that I was beginning to get upset and cry, and I was getting embarrassed about crying, and I was shouting out in frustration about why is it that I can't have this covered because I've paid for a whole year. I'm on my way to see my daughter, I can't go and see her. And it was all half shouting, half screaming, half crying. I was banging my steering wheel. I was in a right state. I made it clear to the guy, I'm not angry at you, I'm just so frustrated about the situation I find myself in. So I had, after my van breakdown, I had an emotional breakdown. I had 2 breakdowns that day. So he put me through to the business department, and it rang through, and it rang and rang and rang, and then I got cut off. And that being cut off just beat me. I just kind of collapsed in myself, and I just took a deep breath, and I rang back to RAC and I said, please can you put me through to the business department because I've got to pay for a new membership, and they won't, I can't use my membership. And I'm guessing, well, 2 things I'm assuming. The first thing I'm assuming, which is pretty obvious, the lady that answered the phone, so the first 2 people were gentlemen, the lady that answered the phone the 3rd time from RAC I think she detected my emotional state, even though I was trying to keep it together. And she was really, really calm, and she was really kind. And she said to me that she couldn't put me through to business because they'd closed for the day. And I kind of, at that point, went, oh no. And I think that was the point at which she thought, oh, okay, this is not good. He's not having a good day. Now, the second thing I'm going to assume is, I'm going to assume from the reaction of the lady that it's possible that the second guy who had to experience my tantrum may have put a note on the system saying that I wasn't necessarily in a good mental space right now, and if I called back to give him some slack. Because the experience I had with the first lady, the third call, was exactly what I should have got the first time. And it frustrates me in hindsight why I had to go through all that turmoil and wasted time and emotions. And in the end, this is what happened. She said that she could do the membership for me. She would charge me £25 as an uplift, and then we could be recovered. I could be recovered. So I thankfully I paid the £25. I was very grateful for that. And then she took some details, and then explained to me that she gets them out to me as soon as possible. They were only about 3/4 of an hour away, and that I should be picked up soon. And that was really kind, really calm, and a credit to RAC and credit to customer service. And then I was I sat in my van and I waited. Obviously, by this point, I was also told my daughter that I couldn't arrive. I was trying to hold it together. I texted her. I couldn't ring her. I was going to ring her, but I thought I can't do that and be crying to her over the phone. So I texted her what's happening, made it clear that I was, struggling a bit, but I was going to get myself home. So about an hour later, the recovery guy came ironically from the place that I was suggested to go to by Green Flag. That was an hour away. And again, I think he must have been given some warning about me, because he was also very calm and very kind. More so than I've experienced it with other recovery chaps, let's put it that way. And he got me on board and loaded it up, and I had to really put it together to ask him the following. Oh no, sorry, go back a step. When I spoke to the lady, she asked me if there's anything anything the recovery driver should be aware of, and I did say one thing, which I'm really glad I did, and I need to do this more often. I did say to her that I have autistic traits, and I do not want to be talking to a stranger all the way home. It would just stress me out too much. So she made a note of that. And then when the guy came to collect me, I wasn't sure whether he got the message or not. So when we got in the van, I said, I don't want to be rude, but I just really want to just sit here and listen to a YouTube video on the way back. I don't want to have a conversation. And he seemed absolutely fine with that. And I didn't mean that I wanted silence. I just didn't want a conversation. And to his absolute credit, without him asking me, he didn't put the radio on. And I knew he did have it on when he arrived, because I remember it being in the background when he rang me. And he obviously thought that I wanted silence, which was not what I really needed, but I had my headphones on and I had my phone. They hadn't run out of charge by this point, although it was getting close. And so he kind of made the decision not to have music on for himself, which I thought was really, really kind of him, and I really appreciate what he did. Although I would have been fine for him to have the radio on, because I could then block that out and have my own sort of sounds on. So it would have been fine for me, but I didn't want to tell him that because it would involve engaging conversation. So I sat in that van for a long time, 2 hours. I was going to say an hour and 3/4. And it was getting quite dark, but it must have been about. I must have been collected about. I'm going to guess about 7 when I was finally collected, and I'd probably go home about 9:30 in the end. So that day was a complete disaster in the end. And where are we now? 25 minutes in. I haven't even told you about today. I've told you about that. I always do this. I go into too much detail about things that are important to me in these videos. But I think if you're still watching these videos, you'll understand that's kind of what I do. So let me try and be a bit quicker with the rest of it. So I rang my mechanic next day. He said he wasn't back at work till Monday, so I couldn't do anything with the van till Monday. Oh yes, the guy that picked me up had a quick look. It was dark, but had a quick look at my van, and he said that he noticed that the engine fan was constantly running when I put the engine on, and I noticed that when I put the engine on, my the fault kept coming up, engine too hot, and the red light, but my temperature gauge was right at the bottom still. So I really felt reasonably confident that I imagined, using logic, that wasn't. It might just be a sensor that was failing to record the temperature correctly, because my van hadn't been driven for a good 2 hours, and when I put it back on, it was still overheated. So I felt that logically couldn't be the case. Therefore, I think that warning must be a fake warning. But I didn't know for sure, and I wasn't prepared. Even with that information, I wouldn't have been prepared to limp home 2 hours just in case I was wrong, because I have in the past, when I got my first car, I blew up the engine by not having enough oil in it, and that was a write-off for my very first car that I ever bought. So I'm aware of the dangers of engines overheating, unfortunately through bitter experience. So I couldn't do anything until Monday, so I was off work for the rest of that week. So that was the Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. On Monday I took my van in, and in the morning when I turned the van on Monday morning, I've never used it, and exactly the same warning light come up. So 4 days on, it still was apparently overheating. So clearly it wasn't actually overheating. So I was reasonably confident, even more so at this point, that it was just a sensor. I took it in, explained the symptoms to my garage mechanic, and he said he'd look at it, and then I said I'll leave it with you. So the long and short of it is, as you probably could guess if you know about these things, it was a faulty sensor, which is a tiny little part which I was shown at the end, and it was fixed and back on the road by I think Wednesday, because they couldn't get the part till Wednesday. So I'll get back on Wednesday. So Thursday morning I had to look at a job on Thursday morning, but because my partner was off work on holiday, I thought I might as well just relax. Then I got dialysis in the afternoon on Thursday. I was planning to do work on Friday, because Fridays are usually pretty good. But when I didn't get a job, and then I think something else happened, I just thought, let's just have the rest of this day off, and let's enjoy it with my partner. Yeah, we went out for the day. Me and my partner went out for the day, and we just quick aside, what we did was we did the thing that we were going to do for our first date that we didn't in the end up doing on our first date. On our first date, I ended up arriving at her house and we didn't leave. So we did a kind of first date memorial, and that was really pleasant, really nice day. So I thought I'd rather do that than work. Right, so also prior to, I think I'm gonna guess about the 28th of September. I can actually give you a specific answer to this because I've got it in my calendar. So, slightly new topic now. So back on Saturday, the 28th of September. That I call that day one of this sort of new thing I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to go into details now, but I had a bit of a what's the word? Eureka moment, I suppose. That's not quite the right phrase. I had a moment where something clicked in my head, and I decided to change what I was doing. I'm going to talk about that more when I've got in a position to do that. I will tell you all about it in a separate video, maybe separate to even a day, if you're interested. But the reason why I mention it now is I want you to mark the 14th of October, which is today, because off the back of my kind of thinking about what I'm going to do next, today was the day that I finally worked out what I'm actually going to do. I knew what I was trying to achieve, and today I've now worked out specifically exactly what it is I'm going to be doing, and now I've just got to start doing it. But as I said, I will, once I'm in a position to, tell you much more about that. But I want to mark today, because today is something I want to remember as being the kind of last little chink in the chink, is that the right word? Link in it didn't sound right. The last little link in the chain of sorting out what I was trying to do. Right, so today, in this morning, I actually managed to get myself a job from a local shipper that works with me a lot on Saturday evening for this morning, and it was picking up from Spalding, but very early. It was a 6:30 a.m. pickup, and it's going to Grimsby. It was only a medium wheelbase van job. It's only 65 loaded miles. But the reason why I did it is mainly it was with a shipper that I like. B, it was very little dead miles. And C, it was a question. I thought I'd be in a reasonable place to get a job from Grimsby, Hull area. So I left the house at about 20 past 6. Oh no, I arrived at 20 past 6. I left about 10 past 6, let's say. It's only about 4 miles away. And I got loaded up really quickly. They're really nice guys there, really friendly. And I made my way towards Grimsby. I'm not touching the price of it. I got £75 for this, 75. So I put a bit more on than I usually do because it was such an early start. I was going to an area that was quite difficult to get out of. So that was the first job. I thought getting to Grimsby before 9 o'clock, and that's going to be a good chance to work out if it's a good place to go to in future. There is a job that I sometimes get from Bury to Grimsby early in the morning. It's sometimes available, and I've never been sure would there be jobs in the morning and go from Grimsby back home. And the answer to that question now is no, there's not. There are some jobs, but they don't go back to where I live. They go all over the place, not where I need to go. So I can't necessarily rely on a job in the morning from Grimsby going back to my house on a Thursday or a Tuesday. So I got to Grimsby, offloaded. It was quite a confusing site to offload at, and I accidentally I arrived. There's a security gate to my right, but sort of off centre, and not really. You didn't have to drive past it. You had to drive up to it, then reverse up. But I didn't know that, so I thought, well, that's possibly defunct. I looked ahead of me. I could see where all the loading bays were ahead of me. It's only a short entrance. It wasn't a long way away, and the gate was up and it was green, and there was nothing in front of me coming out or going in. So I thought, well, okay, I'll go into the goods inn and find out where they want me. So I went in, parked up, went to the driver's office, it all seemed to be fine at this point. And as I arrived, a guy came into the office, and then I heard him take a message over the walkie-talkie, which said, "There's a guy in a white van just come up. He's sending back to security, please." He may not have said please. That's me putting that word on. So I realised at this point, I had to go to security. So I reversed my van back out and went back out the gate I came in, and it was obviously down at this point. I could see security to my left. There were lots of people coming past me, going to their smoking area, and I waited at the gate, and it was red and it wasn't moving. I tried pressing what I think was a defunct call button up high like lorries have. Nothing happened, and I was a bit frustrated now because I thought, well, he used to do this to sort of be spiteful because I went to the wrong place. And I reversed up, and then a guy came walking up to me, and he explained to me that it was a one-way system to get out, and there was no signage either anywhere saying one way. On the floor, there was no arrows on the floor at any point around the side that I was going around. So it wasn't obvious to me that I had to go back out the other way. And if I could have driven forwards into a busy yard and then come to a dead end, and annoyed people for being there in the wrong place. So I don't feel I did the wrong thing by doing that, but I was glad I was told the right thing. So I went all the way around and then came out the other end, went back into the entrance, found security, and I was expecting him to be a bit sarky with me, but I thought I'll just be really polite with him, and he was alright, and we got okay. He did say to me that people who first come on site usually don't come to security and go through that gate, and that makes me think, well, I didn't say this out loud, it makes me think, well, if it happens more than once, maybe you should look at your signage and the way that you're driving in is. As a driver, first time on site, I get to lots and lots of sites. Some sites, they're all different in how they operate. It's not like you have a standard set of rules. When there's a security office, it's usually before you get to the barrier, on the way to the barrier to getting in, not to one side, just outside of a car park. Often security huts are not manned, they're empty, they're defunct and not used. So even though there's a building there, the security hut, it's not obvious always you have to use it. The one I went to had mirrored glass, so I couldn't see that there was someone in there when I first pulled up. And secondly, so the security thing there may well have been a defunct box for all I knew, and when I walked up to it and looked through the gates that was in front of it, it led to a small car park, which was obviously not for anything like to use. So it was obviously had been a redesigned site in my mind, where security. I reckon at some point you had to go past the security to go round the site, but I think they've changed it now, and I think what they've done is they've made you go in the other way. So that's what I'm thinking in hindsight. But they haven't done any signage. The other thing is, if you're going to have a one-way system, you've got to have signage for someone that comes for the first time, because it's not obvious. It is not obvious whether some sites you go in and back out the way you came, some sites you go around. You know, it's obviously if I've gone to security, they'd have told me this stuff, so obviously that would have solved it. But bearing in mind, he said to me I wasn't the first person to go through that gate without going to security. They need to think about, in my mind, they need to think about their signage and what it's like for someone brand new coming to that site. And most sites I go to are really clearly labelled or intuitive, or you know, they're you get to, there's someone there to ask. Right, moving on. So I got myself off site eventually. I didn't have to wait very long. He did say to me, you might have to wait half an hour because I know that one of the forklift drivers is on break. So I was ready for a long wait. It was only about 5 minutes in the end and someone came out. So that was really really good in the end. So by the time I got off site, it was 8:55 in the end. There was a great job from Immingham, which was I was 15 minutes away from, going to just around about the Bristol area. And it was about 165 loaded miles. So I think it was a small van job, and I bid 80p a mile, loaded mile on that, and I was only 15 minutes away, and I didn't get that job. And I should have probably taken that as a warning about how the day was going to go, because I was certain that I was close enough to it. I was the closest driver who was available, and I was certain that my price was really competitive. But quite quickly, I didn't get that job. So I tried to get a job for a while, and eventually I did get one. It was from just west of Hull. I had to go across the Humber Bridge to get to it and get away from it. It was going from North Ferriby to Melton Mowbray, and I thought that would be a good job for me because it takes me to a better area, and it'll be still about midday, and I'll have a chance of going anywhere around the country from Melton Mowbray. So I arrived on site at 9. No, so I left. I got the call at 9:23. So it was about half an hour of me waiting to get that job, and I arrived. So I left to go. I'm tongue-tied. I left to go on that job at 9:25, and I arrived. Picked up the job, which was 31 dead miles away. 26. No, 26. Oh god, this is going quite poorly at the moment. Let me start that again. I got the call at 9:23. I was 26 dead miles away from the pickup, which is 31 minutes. That involved going across the Humber Bridge, paying a small toll there and back. So I went off immediately. I picked up the load, which was 11 small light boxes, and it was going to a food manufacturing place in Melton Mowbray, which I had been to in my old job many years ago. So I was aware where it was. I arrived on site at the drop-off site at 12 o'clock. Had a chat with the very friendly security guard who told me where to go. I got to that point and there was no one around. So I went around the building and found a forklift driver, and he was really confused. I showed him the paperwork. I said, I've got 11 boxes to deliver. Do you know where I'm meant to go? And it wasn't English wasn't his first language. And so I said, because he couldn't understand what I was saying. He couldn't understand on the paperwork what I was delivering. So it was on the paperwork. It said something beard snoods, blue beard snoods, something like that. Which I'm guessing is protective, like coverings for your chin. If you work in food manufacturing places. But he didn't understand what I'd got, so I said, well, you can look at it like it's on my side door. And he didn't understand what side door meant. And I kept saying side door. I was pointing to it. And I had the engine on, so I didn't get out. And he went round the back of my van, to the back of the van, came back to my window and said, I can't find them, but where's the boxes? And I said, it's the side door. Just there, look, that door. Eventually, he opened the side door, saw them, came back to me, just as confused. It didn't help at all. So I thought, this is not really helping me. He obviously doesn't know what's happening with these. Then he said, let's go to hygiene. So he asked me to pull forward and stop on a road, but like about 10 metres in front of where I was. And I thought it's a bit of a strange place to stop, but yeah, I'll do that. So I went there, stopped there, looked at my mirror. He got his forklift driver. He got his forklift, and he just buggered off. He just drove off somewhere. And I thought, I don't think he knows where I'm meant to be. I don't trust that I'm in the right place. I'm on the road. I'm not actually in a loading bay. There's lorries coming along this sort of industrial road that I'm on, and they can get past me, but I don't feel like this is the right place to be. So after about a minute of waiting and not seeing anything, I went round to where I thought I was meant to offload. I got out of my van and I walked across and met someone else. And then another forklift driver came round who was just delivering a couple of pallets. And the second guy said he didn't have a clue what I was talking about. He also didn't speak great English. The forklift driver guy did speak English, but he didn't want anything to do with me. He wanted to get on with his job and go away. So at this point I was getting quite frustrated because I was in the right place, the right factory, but no one wanted to take his box off me. So he looked at the boxes, the guy that I was with, he didn't know what to do with them. He said hygiene again. So he pointed me in the direction of another building. I started to walk towards it. And then the first guy that I talked to opened up some shutter doors and was standing there. So I now realised he must have gone off to come into that building. So I brought my van round, and then by the time I was about 30 seconds, I got there and he disappeared. He wasn't there anymore. But the shutters was open. So I waited for a bit, and I thought, okay, he must want me to put these on the side by the shutters. So I offloaded the boxes onto like a little curbside, like a chest height curbside, by this shutter doors. And I loaded them up. I went into the doors and I went to find the guy, and it was a small, like where I was like a small small room, like a pump house, and there's a few pallets and stuff there, but it wasn't really much there. And there's no one there. There was one door out. I went through the door and it ended up being just a door back outside. It was really weird. So I went back to my van. I was going to pod it off myself because I sort of knew the name of the guy. And then he came back. He looked at the boxes and looked really frustrated, and kind of went and huffed. And I asked him what's wrong, and he didn't tell me. And he came and took paperwork. He signed it, and then I got myself offside. I don't know where I was meant to put those boxes. I was in the end just happy to get offside because I was getting no support from these people whatsoever, and their lack of English didn't help. And in the end I got offside at nearly 12:30. It's 12:25. So I'd arrived there, been there for nearly half an hour trying to sort out this delivery of 11 light boxes. So I was a bit frustrated about that, but I got off site and I was looking at jobs, and I thought I'd have a pretty good chance of getting a job from Melton Mowbray, but boy was that wrong. I was searching for jobs, I was bidding at first of all the prices I wanted to do jobs for, then I was bidding at prices I thought I might get the jobs for, then I was bidding at prices that I thought, just get me out of here. And by well over 2 hours I was still there, and I was getting quite frustrated. I thought, I've got to move now. I was looking at where the jobs were coming from. Most of the jobs were coming from Leicester or Nottingham. And I thought, if I get myself to the main road that runs between those two towns, or cities, sorry, then I'll park up there, be close to those two, so I'm within about 20 minutes rather than in about half an hour. And I did that, and then I parked up and I was searching again, and eventually I did get a job at 3 minutes to 3, and it was with a company I've worked for before. I don't mind this company now I'm kind of used to them, because they do tend to pay okay. You might have to chase them once, but if you just chase them, they'll pay you there and then. So I'm kind of okay with working for them, and I've done a few jobs for them, and I know that they have a lot of work in my area. But I am aware that the person who's on the phone is very, very busy and not always very organised, let's put it that way. At least that's the impression I get. I don't want to I think they do as let's put it this way, I think they do as best a job as they can do with the situation they find themselves in. I'm assuming that they're just given too much work to do for a normal human being, rather than anything to do with their competence. I have no reason to think they're not competent. They're friendly and they're competent as far as I'm aware, but I just think from busyness point of view, I do find there's lots of errors. And this was no different. Got a call saying, how far away are you? I said, I got full postcode. I was 23 minutes away. She said, please can go straight away. I'll let you know the full details when I can, but for now just get there. This is an emergency job, urgent job. So I'd bid on this job £40. I was now at that level for 30 loaded miles for a small van job, and I was 18 miles away from the pickup. So it's picking up from Leicester, going to Nottingham. Actually, go to Bingham in the end. So I arrived on site. I got as soon as I could. I arrived on site at 3:31. Also, the other thing that's frustrating me, sorry, just slight aside, I hadn't actually managed to get myself to a toilet, and I really needed to. The second place I went to, I was going to get to the toilet, but it was too far away. I just wanted to get myself off site. This was when I did the second pickup. So from about 9:30 onwards, I was wanting the toilet, and so I got to the pickup point. I managed to use their toilet and then pick up one small parcel to take. But when I asked them where I was going, there's no address on the parcel. I asked the lady where I was going, she didn't know. She rang. She said, just go to the postcode that you've got. I checked the system, I didn't have any postcode. I only had the NG13 bit of the postcode. I had no name, no address, no full postcode. So I had to then just pause and say, can you just let me know what the name and address is I'm going to, because I don't have that information. She then got that from one of her colleagues who emailed it to her. I wrote it on the parcel and then made my way to Bingham. I got there to a residential address and rang the bell, which didn't appear to work, knocked on the door, which did appear to make a sound, and I was there at 4:20, and I was there for a good 7 minutes trying to get someone to come to the door, and eventually a guy came initially. I had to get him for this job to sign a POD, because that's what the company needs us to do. They won't accept signatures on the app. So when I asked him to sign a piece of paper, he was too busy, he was on the phone, and he had to get his partner to do it, who the parcel was for. So the partner came down, signed for it, I took a photo of it, and then I'd finished. So about 4:30 I was finished. I'd done my third job, and I was thinking, as I was on the way up to Bingham, I was thinking, maybe I should have done this more today. Maybe I should have done £40 jobs around the East Midlands, because it feels like I've wasted a lot of today. But I thought I got myself in a good area, Nottingham, or near Nottingham, just outside Nottingham, in time for before 5 o'clock, and I bid on some more work. And I got offered a job, no, not really, no. I got called about a job going from Newark to Coventry. Small van job. It was something like 40 odd miles, I can't remember exactly what it was. I bid, no, it was 50 miles. 50 miles. I bid £60 because that's kind of my minimum rate for a long wheelbase job, if I can get it. And the reason I'm putting that a bit more on, rather than going back down to 50, which is what I can often do, is because I was actually only 12 minutes away from the pickup point. So I thought, and I was the only driver anywhere near Newark at this point, and I was going to Coventry, which was taking me away from home. So I thought it's a bit awkward. I'm quite close to home at the moment. This takes me directly in the opposite direction. So I thought I would go for 60, and I got called quite quickly, and the guy said, a very friendly conversation, the guy said, I've got £50 on this, I'm willing to go halfway between your bid and mine, £55. And I just thought, not really, no, because I'd rather have my £60 that I bid. I don't want to keep being chipped down. So I thought I would get it at 60. But he said, after a sort of friendly chat, he said, okay, fair enough. And basically said, thank you for the bid, and then put the phone down. So in the end, I lost out on that job for the sake of a £5. I misjudged it. I thought that because of the time of the day, 4:30, because I was the only driver nearby, and because I've got good feedback and I'm polite native English speaker, that I would get what I wanted for that job. And I misjudged it because what he was saying to me was, I can stretch you to 55, but no more. Take it or leave it. That's not the tone that I heard. I heard, oh, this is a negotiation, I'm going to be cheeky, try and get for 5 or less than you bid. So I put the phone down and I thought, oh, well, that's. I'm not too bothered about not getting, because Coventry was a long way from home. It would have made my day a lot longer. And I thought, well, let's call it a day now. Let's take myself home, and at least I'll have an early day. I'll be home for about 6, and call it quits for today. So that's what's happened. I'm on my way home. All of this hour video I've done has been from when I left just outside of Newark, just outside of Bingham, sorry, and then came home. So I'm about 10 minutes away from home now. So thank you for listening to this quite long catch-up video. If you're still with me, well done. Big respect to you if you're still listening to this video at this point. And actually, tell you what, out of interest, can you just put a little thumbs up in my comments if you're hearing this bit of the video? Because I would be very surprised if anybody has got this far. But if you have, I'll give you a thank you sign in return, because I do appreciate it. Right, I hope that you're being successful this week. However you choose to define that word for yourselves. And I'm planning to speak to you again on Wednesday. Farewell, friends.